Hi, Joe. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me.
Beautiful. And like I mentioned earlier, thank you so very much for accepting the invite. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Okay, Joe. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons. All right. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking, because I believe in order to transition from a chaotic situation to that of a beautiful one, it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, Joe, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I just do not want to remain in the dark. And that's why our conversation today is going to be very, very important to me and even to the audience. The second reason why I'm excited to have Joe on the show is for the sake of the listeners. You see, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got a lot of informations out there. So these folks trust me for quality information. And that's why when I came across your profile, I was excited because I believe that our conversation is going to be insightful. So for that reason, Joe, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or professional journey. Let us know how you got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Joe, over to you.
All right. So I started out on the path of medicine. Originally, I was going into medical school with the intention of becoming a cardiothoracic surgeon, a heart surgeon. Loved the operating room, loved being able to help people with my hands. And during my training, I learned that surgery was not going to be a good fit for me because one of the things that I put at very high importance in my life is family. And I think everyone needs a balanced life. So I ended up switching out from surgery, being that many surgeons didn't have the kind of balance that I would choose for my future family. I didn't have a family at the time. And I switched into anesthesiology for a few reasons. Anesthesiologists are in the operating room. They enjoy being a part of caring for patients undergoing significant procedures, and which, by the way, basically all procedures are significant when you're the patient, of course. And also, it appealed to uh, my mechanical interests and my love of human physiology. Physiology is kind of the study of how the body works together with a series of chemical reactions and mechanistically, like how the heart pumps and how the lungs work. So it was very applicable to my interests and made for a good fit. I practiced anesthesiology full time for 12 years. Then during COVID, discovered that I was still not happy with the direction of my life. I had a life that was largely out of balance. I was part of a group that I could no longer help. Didn't feel like I was a contributing member. I didn't have anything else to add. And I had this yearning, a calling, if you will, to do more with my life. And was drawn to help folks who have encountered drug addiction and the consequences of drug addiction, which is interesting in and of itself because I don't have any personal history with drug addiction. No one in my immediate family has issues with drug addiction. And yet I felt this very strong calling. It tied in very neatly with my training in anesthesiology because it involves physiology, it involves the need to breathe, and was able to use my gathered information and knowledge from anesthesiology and my practice of anesthesiology in developing a new medication that I could use to help the communities, nationally and internationally. So that was kind of my path, and it took a dramatic turn during COVID. I suspect we're going to get into that a little bit more here in a little bit.
Beautiful. You know, what an interesting story. And what I can, say from your journey is every step you took were a very important one to lead you to your true calling. Like that part where
Amen.
you,
Yep.
yeah, that part where you mentioned that the knowledge and the insights you gathered from the one you were before helped you develop some things. And I found that really powerful because no matter where we find ourselves in life, I feel like there are lessons there that needs to be learned. And we are there for a particular reason. And I love that part. You used one of my favorite words where you said help. I love that. Because folks who are wanting to help other people live a better life, they are great people and you should commit yourself to them. A lot of things that you're going to benefit from people like that, just like you, Joe. And I love that. So that's going to lead to the very first question. All right. Are you ready? Okay. So,
I'm ready.
yeah, let us talk about why and how did you choose to get into the pharmaceutical industry? Can you just talk to us about that?
Yeah. So through my training in anesthesiology, I discovered that our method of reversing drug overdoses using Narcan, like the nasal sprays, is what people are most often familiar with, is inadequate for a lot of people. The doses of opiates, which is the type of medication that or drug that the naloxone counteracts, the opiates that people were ingesting were so strong, so potent, so concentrated that it takes many rounds of Narcan to help these people. I talked to some first responders and learned that it's not uncommon to give more than 10 rounds of this nasal spray. It's a lot of naloxone. And even more scary is the fact that most people, if you don't have a first responder there, you don't have a medical team actually, to be more specifically, you're not going to get the help you need oftentimes. So as a result of this, we have 300 people whose lives are lost to drug overdose every day. That's more than 100,000 people a year. Many of those people can't even be treated with normal doses of Narcan or naloxone. You need multiple rounds. And I knew with my knowledge background that there has to be a better way. So felt led to pursue that and started researching this on my own and did in fact discover and develop a new medication that works in a completely different way from naloxone, Narcan, so that it doesn't matter how big the dose of the opiate is. It doesn't matter what the issue is that's causing the person not to breathe. It might not even be an opiate. It might be a heart attack and they have a cardiac arrest and they collapse, or maybe they drowned. There are other scenarios where people stop breathing. And of course, when you're not breathing, you're not taking in oxygen and the brain starts dying in about 5 to 8 minutes. So this medication stimulates the breathing centers in the brain and triggers people to start breathing even if they're unconscious. And that type of response that we get from this medication is life-saving. And again, my calling is to help people. And if this is a way that I can do that, I need to see it through. So with this knowledge, I decided to go to business school. I got my MBA, my Master's of Business Administration, and started this company, ROS Pharma, with the specific intention of developing this medication and perhaps other medications that we can use to bring the cost of healthcare down and to develop and deliver life-saving medications.
Awesome. That's a good one. I love that. So
Thank you.
after you discovered your purpose and you started functioning in your purpose, what are the things that came your way, like challenges, and how did you overcome these challenges? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so every step of the way there were challenges. Every single step. In the beginning, of course, there's financial challenges. Do you have enough money for the next study, for the to pay the legal team to do the patent work? Of course, patents are very important because if you don't have that, nobody's going to work with you. You have to have the ability to do studies that prove that your medication works. And at each one of these steps, uh, there were roadblocks. The question is, where am I going to get money? And honestly, by the grace of God, I have everything I need financially. Even if I don't have the money today, I have the money before I actually need it. So it all has been fitting together. I've encountered many people who are eager to support this mission, and they've been very generous and have excitedly invested in the project. And that's been a blessing. When I was developing this medication, I had some questions. I had contacts who were chemists, another contact who was a pharmacist, and I reached out to them, said, "Hey, Jeff, what would you do here? What would you, how would you manage this?" And they were able to help me and point me in a direction. When this was a really interesting one, when I did this really important study that basically what I was looking to see from the study was to see that when we made this change to the medication, that it made it last longer because the medicine has to last long enough. What I expected was that in exchange to making it last longer, it was also going to be slower to start working. And that's kind of a problem, but I had an idea of how I was going to work around that. When I got the study back and I looked at the graphs, I was dismayed and very much saddened by the fact that it made everything work quicker. And I was frustrated and I thought, I did everything I was supposed to do. I was everything I was supposed to do, everything I was felt led to do, and things weren't working in the way I expected it to. And it was very frustrating and didn't know what I was missing or what I was doing wrong. So when that happens, when I experience that, I just close it, I put it away, and I bring it back with a fresh set of eyes. I looked at it again a couple of weeks later and saw, to my great delight, that not only did it make it work faster, but it also achieved the other goal of making it work longer. So everything was there, but I didn't see it at first. So to me, that was a huge failure. And the failure was on my part for not recognizing, not seeing it, because I had this bias, this idea of what I was going to see, but the overall picture was much more of a blessing than I realized it could have been.
Oh, amazing. I found that very motivating and inspiring. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about, you mentioned opioids, and I want us to talk about the epidemic of opioids and how can we curb it? And also, how can we curb substance misuse in the US? Can you talk to us about that?
Those are such important questions. The the complexities behind the opiate epidemic are vast. There are a lot of situations, a lot of issues. We know that it spans all age groups, basically. We know that it spans all races, all socioeconomic scales, the rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated, men and women, men more than women, but still it affects everybody. Some people become addicted from the pain medications they were prescribed after surgery. There was a particular medication that was on the market, OxyContin, that has been identified as a source for addiction, or what started their addiction for many people. I think somewhere on the order of almost half the people who started taking this medication got addicted, which is just a tragedy. So that's one group. Another group of people start using the medication recreationally. It's fun. They're socializing. They're searching for the next fun thing. And then another group abuse medications or misuse the medications in a way to escape. They're depressed, they're hurt, maybe they've been emotionally or physically abused, and they're very much saddened. And so they turn to substances to help them cope. The reality is, it doesn't matter which of these three paths leads to substance misuse or addiction, because ultimately the result is the same. If you don't stop, you will eventually succumb. You will eventually perish, die from this problem. So I say that entirely lovingly. This is not a criticism. I'm certainly not passing judgment. So the next question, what I think that ties into, and you asked, how do we curb it? It's very complex. For the first group of folks, the most important thing is to become aware and make society aware of the abuse nature of these medications. And I think we've largely accomplished that. From a pharmaceutical industry standpoint, I would love to see more development into non-addictive medications or significantly lower addiction medications. And then with the middle group that we have, the folks who use recreationally, it's fun, it's entertainment. I think there's a problem with how they're seeking pleasure. And again, it's not a judgment, it's not a criticism. And I'm a big believer in liberty and autonomy and free will. I want people to be able to enjoy their lives the way they want. But the reality is, once addiction kicks in, people are no longer happy. They're now enslaved by this drug, the pursuit of these chemicals. And they're not choosing the drug has already chosen them, and they just have to follow, and that's a tragedy. So some of that's going to be education in the home, and I believe personally in church, and to, instead of seeking out chemicals for joy and pleasure, seek out fellowship, seek out other ways to feel exhilarated. Maybe that's hiking, maybe that's doing something exciting. Maybe it's going to a movie. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to equate drugs with going to a movie. I realize they're very different, but they're very different for a reason. One is, a chemical, and the other one is an enjoyment of the arts. And the last group, the folks who are looking for an escape, for me, these folks, my heart breaks the most for them, because they're already hurting. And in trying to deal with their hurt, they instead inflict more punishment on their body. And it would be beautiful if they could find peace and love somewhere outside of chemicals. Maybe it's a new group of friends, but for the people who have discovered him, it's in our Lord and Savior. And I know we're in a spiritual podcast here, and spirituality is a very important part of my life. And I want to emphasize to the listeners, your listeners, that what we have in our Bibles, our gift from God is direction on how to be happy, how to have true peace and true tranquility in life. Really, the only way is through Him, and we can pursue the anxiety and all the medications we have to treat the anxiety and depression. But ultimately, we need to look inward and say, why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? Is it because I'm not trusting God enough with my current state of being? Is it because I'm worrying about tomorrow when tomorrow will bring enough worries on itself? And do I not trust that God will see me through, that He is always with me? And these are questions that are difficult for somebody who's either a non-believer or early in their faith to just totally just trust God. But once they can learn to give up on the controlling aspect of things and just let go and let God, they will find themselves in a state of peace they've never experienced. And I don't believe people who reach that level of peace will ever need to turn to drugs for comfort.
That's right. You see, I love how you answered that question, and you started well and you ended very, very well. I love that. That's a great
Thank you very
one.
much.
Yeah, you know, peace to live a life of no worries and depression and all of those things. We would only find them nowhere else other than Jesus, and that's the truth. That's a great one. Okay, Joe. So to bring this to an end, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing. You said so many amazing stuffs and it resonated and they would love to learn more. How can that be possible?
Appreciate that. I'd like to leave your audience with words of encouragement if they're currently feeling weak in their faith or they're struggling with substance abuse or really any other struggles. Maybe they lost an important person in their family and they're grieving. I would encourage them that the future is bright, to seek out our Heavenly Father, to perhaps open their Bible and allow God to take control of their grief and to guide them into the future, and to realize that He only wants good things for us. And if we let Him and we follow His lead, we will live beautifully and healthy lives. So I think that's an important thing to take away.
Yeah, very important. I love that. Okay, what about your website or your contact?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. You can check out what we're doing at aurospharma.com. That's AUROSPHARMA.com. And there's a contact me and a link tree on that page. You can kind of see what we're doing and get an idea of who we are as a company. We're passionate about helping people and saving lives and being responsible as we do it.
I love that.
God bless you. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Amen.
it.
Yeah, so that's going to be the end of the show. Thank you so very much, Joe. Thank you for coming
Thanks
and
for
thank
having
you
me.
for blessing us with these words. It means a whole lot,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.